What's going on, everyone? I'm just a typical average American here today to react and learn about Queen Elizabeth's final hours. Now, I think since a few days have finally gone by and some of the initial shock is starting to lessen, people are becoming more comfortable and accepting the fact that this is reality. The Queen has passed away. And the same has happened for me in a sense, and it's got me wondering at this point. I never really learned about or looked into, since that first day, the circumstances of Queen Elizabeth's passing, her final day on Earth. And I came across this video. There's been some news coverage in America about this now. And I found I was quite interested in maybe learning more about what happened on that day. The news reports in America, the day of the Queen's passing, it was all very sudden. We woke up, everyone's phone was blowing up where it was saying, the Queen is in a rough condition. It was very vague. And her family is coming to, all of her extended family is coming to visit her. And Americans were just like, what? Huh? What does this mean? What are we saying here? Was kind of the thought. And then, bam, like 3 hours later, 4 hours later, after the initial reports, the Queen has passed away. The next thing that pops up on your phone. Now it's just like, I had thought about that as a possibility, but at the same time had not really thought that was a real possibility somehow. So it was pretty shocking. And ever since, I haven't thought about, well, is there more to the story of her passing and what happened? So I'm interested to learn about that.
Want to head back to Scotland. Amy Robach is there.
Right. I know she was in Scotland at the time. Is that just she was there at a residence? I believe one of the castles that she likes to visit. Was that just coincidence she happened to be there, or was she there on purpose for medical attention, or I'm not sure.
There in Edinburgh, and I believe, don't know if you were going to use this line now, but I heard you say it on GMA this morning that how is it possible that something that was intellectually inevitable for us all still came as such a surprise and a shock?
Yeah. I mean, even the even the American reporters get it. Like we all get it. We all think that. Even in America, we all knew this could happen, but we all didn't think this could happen. It's wild.
To hear of the passing of the Queen.
Yeah, no, and TJ, you and I remember exactly where we were yesterday when we heard the news. It was an unprecedented announcement from the palace saying from the Queen's doctors that they were concerned for her health. And then we got word that members of the royal family were all heading as quickly as they could to be by the Queen's bedside there in.
Yeah, that was the concerning part, I think, for everyone. I don't know what the coverage was like in the UK and other parts of the world, but it went from the Queen is in intensive care, and then suddenly it was the Queen's family is rushing to be with her. And suddenly it was like, what is going on? And then we all know what happened not long after that.
In Balmoral, and that made people perk up and think this isn't what we've been used to hearing. This isn't something that the palace has ever announced before.
Yeah.
And sure enough, in a few hours, we all got that announcement that, of course, we knew would one day come, and yet still, as you say, sent shockwaves around the world.
Yeah.
The world mourning the passing of Britain's longest-serving monarch, Queen Elizabeth II, as new details emerge about her last moments. Two of her children, Charles and Anne, were with her during her final hours.
Really? See, this is what I wasn't sure about. They made it sound like in a lot of the news reporting here that lots of the family was rushing, flying, jetting to Scotland to be with her by her side. And now it seems like maybe that did happen. And then maybe at a point it was just her children, Charles and Anne. For some reason I've never heard of Princess Anne. Is that what it would be? Let me see here. Eliza. Children. Children. UK, just so Google understands. Yes, Anne, Princess Royal Anne, King Charles, oh, Prince Andrew, and Prince Edward, 4 children. Oh my goodness. I'm sorry, but this is probably the most non-up-to-date. I'm exposed. I really didn't know she had 4 children. I think I obviously heard of Charles at this point. For some reason, America only focuses on the princes, Harry and, oh, I actually forget the name of the, that just goes to show you. That's a good indication of the average American's awareness and knowledge on all of this royal stuff. I certainly have never followed it closely up until now, so I don't honestly know the names of most of the royalty. Queen Elizabeth was the de facto person Americans were familiar with.
The 96-year-old Queen passed away peacefully at her beloved Balmoral estate in Scotland Thursday. Charles seen earlier in the day arriving by helicopter. Other royal family members racing to try to get there in time. Flying into Aberdeen Airport in Scotland. Prince William, solemn on the tarmac.
Prince William and Harry. For some reason, the American media only focuses on them. Always. And that's why I've never really learned about Elizabeth's children.
Spotted driving his uncles, Prince Andrew and Prince Edward, and Edward's wife Sophie to Balmoral. Harry arriving alone after the news his grandmother had passed. He and Meghan were already in the UK.
So it really was a lot of the members of the family, although some of them arrived after her death. And it seems like the only clear thing to me is that Charles and Anne were there, possibly by her side, possibly when she passed away. I'm glad that that could happen like that, honestly. Hearing this for like the first time, that's nice that she had some of her children physically there with her.
A notice of Her Majesty's passing hung on the gates of Buckingham Palace.
A few moments ago, Buckingham Palace announced the death of Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II.
Anchors on British television somber as they delivered the news.
Yeah.
The Queen passed away earlier today with her family by her side.
Wow.
Pilots alerting passengers mid-flight. The news of the Queen's passing coming after a rare announcement from the palace just hours before.
I bet the people on that flight and other people who were just notified in circumstances like that, I mean, everyone, even if it was the news, was just shock. I mean, what are the stages of grief, right? Disbelief, denial, anger, acceptance. You know, it's actually all true. That does happen.
Noting the Queen's doctors were concerned for Her Majesty's health. Now her eldest son, Charles, now king, saying in a statement, "We mourn profoundly the passing of a cherished sovereign and a much-loved mother. I know her loss will be deeply felt throughout the country, the realms, and the Commonwealth, and by countless people around the world. My family and I will be comforted and sustained by our knowledge of the respect and deep affection in which the Queen was so widely held."
Must be so strange, unimaginably strange, to be the son of such a beloved person, let alone the Queen. And you can't even stop for a second and really properly mourn your mother's death. You're becoming king. Millions of people around the world are mourning. You have an obligation to make a statement to comfort others. You want to be comforted, and it's your duty now to comfort your nation. So I really sympathize with that, honestly.
The Queen performing her duties until the very end. Her last photographs taken just 3 days ago as she swore in the new British Prime Minister, Liz Truss, at her Scotland castle.
Wow. I mean, look, she's smiling. She's swearing in the new Prime Minister. She's totally with it. I'm just saying again, as a person, as an individual, her health was incredible. and her mental, prowess, awareness, so strong. And like up until literally the day she died, she was completely with it intellectually and physically for a 96-year-old. Yes, I'm going to call that with it. Amazing.
Queen Elizabeth II was the rock on which modern Britain was built. Our country has grown and flourished under her reign.
Mourners
That's the new prime minister, I believe. Talk about an unusual circumstance. Because getting sworn in as prime minister right at this time when something that hasn't happened in lifetimes occurs. The king or queen passes away. It's just a crazy circumstance, but crazy for everyone.
gathering outside Buckingham Palace. Honoring their queen.
And TJ, you and I, of course, were
Oh, is that God Save the Queen? I'm not that familiar with the national anthem. I'm gonna have to listen to that at some point. Like, properly, I mean.
here just a few months ago in London celebrating the Queen's Platinum Jubilee, something that this nation had never seen before, a monarch on the throne for 70 years. And because her reign was so long, so unprecedentedly long, get this, 4 out of 5 people who live here in Great Britain have never known any other monarch other than Queen Elizabeth.
Yeah.
So there is
Yeah. Same in America. I'm surprised it's not more. She has been the queen for several generations of humans now.
real sense of sadness and somberness here in Edinburgh and across the United Kingdom, and it's understandable. So many people here felt like they lost a mother, a grandmother.
That's what I've been hearing. I'll let this play for a second.
And it's understandable. So many people here felt like they lost a mother, a grandmother, a great-grandmother, TJ.
And of course,
That's what I've been hearing, likening this to the loss of a loved one, a family member, a mother, a grandmother, great-grandmother. Incredibly substantial figure in millions of people's lives and basically call it their family. That's why I have heard her funeral will probably be the most watched funeral, if not event, in modern history, I bet. Like billions of people watching, I'm sure.
Of course, Robes, there'll be so much emphasis and attention at Buckingham Palace and in London in particular, but it's something bittersweet and special because she passed in a place that was very special to her, there in Scotland.
Yeah.
Right. I haven't heard much about where she passed away. It was a castle in Scotland. I think it was one of her residences that she enjoyed, which is nice. That's nice. Hopefully she was comfortable and all that. We're not getting like the nitty gritty super details of like she literally died of this complication in this manner. And I don't know if we're gonna get that, but I think it's okay. I think it's okay if we don't. There's a certain level of respect that goes along with like, you don't need to know every little tiny detail about the intricacies of how someone passed away. So I think just this overview is very nice and very enlightening.
Yeah, Scotland was the place she always wanted to be. It's where she summered every year. So many major milestones happened in her life at Balmoral Castle, and so that is the place that she felt most comfortable. It was her ancestral home. In fact, she owns it. The Crown doesn't own it. It's a part of her and her family's history, and so it was.
Oh, like the Windsors? The Windsor family, if I'm saying that right? It's her family owns a castle? What?
Very special for her to be here, and that's why there was that
cool
contingency plan. If she passed here in Scotland, what would happen next? Because there was a lot of anticipation that may indeed might have been the case, and certainly that is what happened, TJ.
I think it's actually almost a good thing that she passed away in Scotland, because it allowed her coffin procession to like take a little journey through parts of Scotland, fly to England, do a procession to Buckingham Palace and Westminster. It kind of made it more special in a way and allowed more people to show up and mourn and grieve and pay their respects along the way. So, It was basically like a semi-tour of Great Britain, sort of. Like, so I think that's actually kind of nice.
All right. Well, Rose, we appreciate you being there. Really, it was a historic times, but you made a heck of a trek to get from here to there and be ready to roll this morning. So always good to see you. Thank you so much. All right.
Yeah, the reporter flew all the way to Scotland to give this report. Appreciate it. Next, I have this short little video about Queen Elizabeth's final appearance, just days before her death. So I was interested in maybe if there's a little more details here about what she was up to in the final days of her life, things like that.
Queen Elizabeth made her final appearance just 2 days before her death. The monarch,
Wow.
who died peacefully on Thursday at the age of 96, formally appointed a new prime minister on Tuesday, Liz Truss.
Right.
Truss traveled to Balmoral Castle in Scotland, where the Queen traditionally spent her summers for the meeting, which
Oh, so the Prime Minister went to Balmoral Castle, where the Queen later passed away, to do the ceremony. Interesting. And that was kind of the Queen's last official duty, or doing like official work for the crown. That's very interesting. Strange that she was so active, and then in just 2 days was, bedridden, needing medical attention, and passing away. Just it all happened so very quickly, you know?
which marked the first time the Queen appointed a new prime minister in Scotland. Elizabeth had been experiencing mobility issues before her death, but was photographed shaking hands with Truss while holding a walking cane and her go-to black handbag.
Okay. So she was experiencing, obviously, there were things going on with your body that's like the public doesn't know. It's just like a personal thing where she was having mobility issues. Okay, that makes sense.
Outgoing Prime Minister Boris Johnson also traveled to Scotland for a formal farewell that same day. A source previously explained that the decision was made for the audiences to take place at Balmoral to provide certainty for the new PM and Johnson schedules. Elizabeth met her first Prime Minister, Sir Winston Churchill, when she stepped off the plane that brought her back to Britain from Kenya in 1952.
Insane. Like 70 years ago, welcoming Winston Churchill. She is literally history. Queen Elizabeth was our connection to the past. That's just another thing that makes this also sad.
The year she ascended to the throne, she'd go on to appoint 15 PMs in total. That responsibility was one of the Queen's key duties, and one she did not delegate to her son and heir, now known as King Charles III. In the months prior to her death, the now king took on an increasing number of other roles on her behalf.
Okay. Interesting. So they really were being smart about this. The Queen...
As a young Lib Dem,
Whoa.
Liz Truss called for the abolition of them.
Whoa, okay, easy. I control when the videos play around here, not you, YouTube, in your little autoplay. Okay, calm down. Okay, sorry about that. Had to wrestle control back from the video playing. Anyway, what was I saying? I have no idea. They were obviously starting to talk about the prospect of, the Queen was 96. We should start transferring some of her duties to Charles, start lessening her load. And there comes a point in everyone's life where you have to create a will, where you have to acknowledge the fact that you're probably passing away sooner rather than later, as blunt as that is. And it seems like she met all of that with an extremely admirable amount of grace and respect. So that's just another really wonderful thing about her. This last video I have is Princess Anne's heartfelt statement about final hours with the Queen. So this is Elizabeth's daughter, Anne, that I really had never heard of. I guess... Would Anne have been queen if she was older? Is that how it works? Charles is older, therefore he becomes king? Is it about the firstborn? I'm kind of wondering that. That's the only thing that comes to my mind. Anyway, I am very interested to hear what Princess Anne, has to say. I'm not sure if her title has changed, actually, now that the Queen has passed away. Anyway, I am interested to hear what she has to say about her mother and the final hours with her.
The two royals who were reportedly at Queen Elizabeth's side during her final hours have become the family's most public figures in the days since. King Charles III has officially ascended the throne, but he's sharing the spotlight with his sister, Princess Anne. Following the example the Queen herself set following the death of Princess Diana, Princess Anne waited 5 days before issuing a statement, which royal contributor Victoria Arbiter shared in a tweet. Princess Anne shared, "I was fortunate to share the last 24 hours of my dearest mother's life. It has been an honor and a privilege to accompany her on her final journeys."
Yeah, it really is great that two of her children were there with her.
Witnessing the love and respect shown by so many on these journeys has been both humbling and uplifting. Referring to both the Queen's funeral and her brother's ascension to the British throne, Princess Anne also added, "We will all share unique memories. I offer my thanks to each and every one who share our sense of loss."
Unique memories is an understatement. I honestly can't even comprehend the experience of royalty and what they think of life and, what they think of this whole human experience, because they have an experience that is so drastically different than the average person that it's hard to relate. But at the end of the day, this is a children with their mother. And the love there, I'm sure, was as true and genuine as any person on earth. So, yeah, and these are very kind words and thoughtful statements from Princess Anne.
Princess Anne also went on to admit that the loss of her mother reminded her of the things she felt were taken for granted, explaining, "We may have been reminded how much of her presence and contribution to our national identity we took for granted."
That's a good point. I think a lot of people took Queen Elizabeth. I'm sure a lot didn't. I took Queen Elizabeth for granted. America sure did. And I'm sure a lot of folks did. Just took the fact that she would be there. She'd always be there because she's always been there. We took it for granted. And it does make you appreciate those types of things.
The Princess Royal has remained beside her mother, from Queen Elizabeth's journey from Balmoral Castle, where she died, to her arrival in London on September 13th. Video captured the look of grief on the Princess Royal's face as she watched her mother's casket be loaded onto the plane that would take her away from her beloved Scotland for the last time. Princess Anne was at Buckingham Palace with other royal family members to receive the Queen, when the hearse carrying the Queen was greeted by a round of cheers. Part of Queen Elizabeth II's final journey included a 6-hour procession from Balmoral to the Palace of Holyrood House. There, King Charles was joined by Princess Anne and Prince Edward, both dressed in military uniform, as well as Prince Andrew, to walk the Queen's casket to St. Giles Cathedral. Once at St. Giles Cathedral, the casket was draped with the royal standard of Scotland, before being adorned with a simple floral wreath and the crown of Scotland.
So they literally have been with the Queen and the Queen's coffin being transported everywhere, like every step of the way. That's pretty amazing.
Afterwards, the siblings took part in the tradition known as the Vigil of the Princes, during which they stood on all 4 sides of the Queen's coffin in silence, as the public paid their respects. Princess Anne's involvement in the tradition marks the first time a woman has been allowed to participate. If there were any questions before about how Princess Anne felt about her mother, those feelings have been made clear in the days following her death.
Was there questions about the relationship between Princess Anne and Queen Elizabeth? Again, I don't even hardly know these individuals at all, let alone the drama of their relationships or anything like that. But maybe some people living in the UK know a little bit more about all that.
If the final curtsy Anne gave the Queen's casket when it arrived at the Palace of Holyrood House was any indication of her feelings, Anne clearly respected, admired, and loved the Queen. In a previously unaired interview from 2017 with ITV's royal editor Chris Shipp, Princess Anne spoke about the relationship she shared with her mother. Besides her appreciation for her parents' partnership, Princess Anne said she and her mother also shared a passion for horses, revealing the connection and freedom they found in the sport.
I mean, it's kind of funny at the same time. It's like normal people might have like a connection over like baking cakes or something fun, and royalty, mother and daughter bond over like super expensive fancy horses. It makes sense given the position that they're in, but it is funny to compare their experience with like normal people.
If you live that rather restricted life, horses become a lot more important, I suspect, because they do give you an opportunity to take you right out of that.
During that same interview, Anne talked about how she learned to be a royal by following the example her mother was setting. One example included the aftermath of Diana's death in 1997, when Elizabeth chose to stay at Balmoral Castle with Prince William and Prince Harry in the wake of their mother's death. According to Oprah Daily, since the Queen also waited 5 days to release a public statement, she was called aloof by critics. Anne, however, felt her mother did what she was supposed to do by putting family first.
Yeah, I think I think people are saying that it looks like Anne and Charles really have learned a lot about the way they carry themselves and the way they present themselves and their messaging. They've learned a lot from their mother, which is, of course, very nice. Oh, that's it. That's the end. Okay, that was very enlightening. Still very sad, but also I do feel like a way of coping is sometimes you can either run away from it and kind of pretend that it never happened if you want to cope that way, or you can kind of do a middle ground where you just kind of quietly and calmly mourn, or you can learn more details, understand the situation. That's kind of how I like to approach this kind of thing. Not that my relationship with the Queen can come close to the relationship of people who are actually living under the Queen, such as in the United Kingdom and other places around the world. But I like to think I can somewhat relate to the situation. Anyway, I really did enjoy looking over these videos, learning a little more about the details about when and where and how she passed and who was with her. And it sounds like it was quite peaceful, and it was as good as it could be in a way, if you want to look at it that way. So that's, of course, very nice to think. So, anyway, if you enjoyed this video, if you enjoyed this reaction, feel free to give it a like or leave a comment. And if you're interested in more videos like this, me reacting to the UK, Great Britain, culture, things, events, stuff I have never seen ever, feel free to subscribe for more. And until then, thanks for watching, and see you next time.